Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights, perhaps brew a calming cup of tea, and embark on a wonderfully gentle journey back to ancient China, a land brimming with ingenuity that often gets overshadowed by its later, more well-known contributions. You'll be exploring some truly remarkable inventions, so obscure and often so far ahead of their time, that you might just find yourself drifting off before we even finish discussing the first one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing on the cobbled streets of an ancient Chinese city, the distant murmur of life a soft counterpoint to the gentle breeze rustling through paper lanterns. The air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and something vaguely exotic, like unfamiliar spices. You notice, amidst the bustling marketplace, a curious contraption. It's small, perhaps no larger than your hand, made of intricately carved wood, and it seems to be moving. Not by human hand, but by some unseen force within. This, my friend, is your first encounter with the earliest automata, the mechanical marvels that whisper tales of ancient ingenuity. Imagine, if you will, the Han Dynasty, stretching across the landscape like a vast, prosperous dragon. It's a time of profound intellectual curiosity, where brilliant minds weren't just pondering philosophy but were actively tinkering, designing, and building. The concept of an automaton, a self-operating machine, might seem like something out of a futuristic dream, but it was a tangible reality, albeit a rare one, in these distant annals of history. You're not looking at a mere toy, but a testament to an understanding of mechanics that would impress even a modern engineer. The core principle behind these ancient automata often revolved around the clever manipulation of gravity, water pressure, or even simple levers and counterweights. It's not the complex electronics we think of today, but a subtle dance of forces, a mechanical ballet orchestrated by human brilliance. You might see a small wooden bird that flaps its wings when a hidden water clock releases a weighted lever, or a figure that bows as a precisely balanced system shifts its weight. These were not mass-produced items, mind you. Oh no. These were bespoke creations, often for the amusement or fascination of emperors and high-ranking officials. Think of them as the ultimate executive desk toy, but with far more intricate workings and a complete absence of blinking lights. One of the most famous, or perhaps infamous, examples comes to us from the Warring States period, even before the Han. You hear whispers of a certain craftsman, Yan Shi, who, according to the ancient text Liezi, presented King Mu of Zhou with a life-sized automaton. This isn't just a bird or a bowing figure, this is a fully articulate, human-like creation. The text describes it as being able to walk, dance, and even sing. You can almost feel the hush fall over the royal court as this mechanical man performs, its wooden joints articulating with uncanny grace. King Mu, initially enthralled, reportedly became quite alarmed when he noticed the automaton winking at his concubines. A rather cheeky detail, if you ask me, and one that gives you a little chuckle at the sheer absurdity of a king getting jealous of a wooden dummy. This anecdote, whether entirely factual or a delightful exaggeration, underscores the sophisticated concepts of motion and replication that were being explored. Now, historians still argue whether Yan Shi's automaton was a fully functional, self-operating machine as described, or if it was a highly sophisticated puppet operated by hidden strings and pulleys. It's a matter of debate if such intricate internal mechanisms could have truly been self-sustaining given the technological limitations of the time. However, the concept itself, the very idea of creating a lifelike mechanical being, speaks volumes about the imaginative leaps these ancient inventors were making. You lean closer, trying to discern any telltale strings on the small automaton in the marketplace, but see none. It simply moves. The principles derived from these early automata weren't just for entertainment. They laid the groundwork for more practical applications. Think about the intricate gears that would later appear in astronomical instruments, or the water-powered mechanisms that would drive mills and even early timekeeping devices. It's like learning to ride a bicycle before you design a car. The fundamental understanding of kinetic energy, of levers and fulcrums, of how to translate one type of motion into another, these were the bedrock principles being explored through the creation of these seemingly trivial mechanical wonders. You might wonder, why build such things? Was it purely for amusement? While entertainment certainly played a role, there was also a philosophical dimension. The Chinese worldview often sought to understand the interconnectedness of the cosmos, the flow of qi, and the harmony between heaven and earth. Creating machines that mimicked natural phenomena, or even human actions, was perhaps an attempt to understand these grander systems, to bring the order of the universe into a manageable, observable form. You could almost say it was an early form of reverse engineering the world around them. The sheer patience required to craft these objects is astonishing. You picture a solitary artisan, hunched over a workbench, meticulously carving gears, fitting tiny wooden pins, and testing each movement with painstaking precision. There were no power tools, no CAD software. It was all done by hand, with simple chisels, saws, and a profound understanding of materials. The wood had to be just right, the metal components, if any, perfectly shaped, and the balance exquisitely achieved. It makes you appreciate the fast-paced, instant gratification of our modern world, where if something doesn't work, we just toss it and get a new one. These craftsmen invested not just skill, but a piece of their very being into each creation. Consider the notion of a hidden complexity. You're looking at a wooden bird that flaps its wings. Simple, right? But the true genius lies in the internal mechanism you don't see. The springs, often made of bamboo or animal sinew, the levers, the intricate arrangement of weights and counterweights, these are the silent partners in the mechanical dance. It's a bit like looking at a calm surface of a pond, completely unaware of the intricate ecosystem teeming beneath. These ancient automata were often designed to mask their true workings, adding to their mystique and wonder. The less you understood how they worked, the more magical they appeared. This fascination with automata wasn't unique to China, of course, but the particular flavor of Chinese ingenuity often leaned towards natural, organic materials and a more subtle approach to mechanical movement. While the Greeks might have focused on pneumatic devices and the Romans on water-powered gadgets, the Chinese were masters of intricate gearing and the delicate balance of forces. You can almost feel the gentle hum of unseen gears turning, the soft click of a wooden lever engaging, as you contemplate these forgotten marvels. It's a quiet mechanical symphony, played out centuries ago. The legacy of these early automata is subtle but profound. They weren't just isolated curiosities, they contributed to a growing body of mechanical knowledge that would later inform the construction of much larger and more impactful machines. From these tiny dancing figures and winking robots, the conceptual seeds were sown for things like the south-pointing chariot, the seismograph, and even complex astronomical clocks. It was a gradual, cumulative process, like building a mountain grain by grain. And you, standing here amidst the echoes of ancient ingenuity, witnessing the very first handfuls of those grains. You imagine the reactions of the common folk, if they ever got a glimpse of such a device. Would they consider it magic? Divine intervention? Or simply the unparalleled skill of a master artisan? Perhaps a bit of all three. In a world without widespread scientific understanding, these creations must have seemed truly astonishing, blurring the lines between the natural and the supernatural. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? To live in a time when a simple mechanical toy could inspire such awe. And with that thought, a gentle weariness starts to settle over you, as the bustling marketplace fades into the background, preparing you for the next, equally intriguing, invention. You're still in ancient China, but now you find yourself amidst a grand imperial procession. The air hums with the soft murmur of thousands, the distant clang of ceremonial gongs, and the rustle of silken banners. Ahead, a magnificent chariot glides along, not pulled by horses, but seeming to move under its own power, a marvel of engineering. Perched atop it, a small, wooden figure extends its arm, perpetually pointing south, unwavering, regardless of how the chariot turns. This, my friend, is the south-pointing chariot, a testament to an ingenious navigational device that predates the magnetic compass by centuries. Imagine the sheer disbelief of onlookers. In a world where directions were often determined by the sun, the stars, or crude landmarks, this chariot offered an almost magical certainty. You squint, trying to understand how it works. There are no magnets, no flickering needles. Just a system of gears, intricately connected, that somehow maintains the figure's orientation. It's a whisper of ancient mechanical genius, a puzzle wrapped in an enigma, cloaked in a mystery. The story of the south-pointing chariot is woven into the very fabric of Chinese legend and history. Accounts trace its origins back to the mythical Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, around the 26th century BCE, which, you must admit, sounds a tad bit mythical. While the earliest versions are likely apocryphal, archaeological and historical evidence points to its practical development much later, notably during the Three Kingdoms period, around the 3rd century CE. The most famous account involves Ma Zheng, a brilliant mechanical engineer of the Wei Kingdom, who rebuilt a south-pointing chariot that had fallen into disrepair or whose secrets had been lost. He was, by all accounts, the kind of person who could fix anything, and if he couldn't fix it, he'd probably invent something better. The core principle, and this is where it gets wonderfully nerdy, is a system of differential gears. Now, don't let that term make you fall asleep just yet, it's quite elegant. Think of it like this: the chariot has two main wheels, just like any other. When the chariot moves in a straight line, both wheels turn at the same speed. But when it turns, one wheel turns faster than the other. The differential gear system cunningly measures this difference in wheel rotation. Through a series of smaller gears and shafts, this measured difference is then used to rotate the pointing figure in the opposite direction of the chariot's turn, thereby keeping it pointed in a constant direction, south. You can almost visualize the intricate dance of the gears beneath the chariot's polished exterior. As the left wheel turns faster, a specific gear on the left side spins more rapidly, and this rotational difference is then translated through a cunning arrangement of intermediate gears to counteract the chariot's pivot. It's pure, unadulterated mechanical wizardry. And here's the quirky tidbit: the figure didn't know which way was south in an absolute sense. It merely maintained its initial orientation relative to the ground. So, if you set it to point south at the start, it would continue to point in that same cardinal direction, regardless of the twists and turns of the road. It was less a magical compass and more a remarkably precise mechanical gyroscope. This ingenious invention was not just a parlor trick for the emperor, it had significant practical applications, especially for military campaigns and long-distance travel across unfamiliar territories. Imagine leading an army through dense forests or across vast, featureless plains. Losing your sense of direction could be catastrophic. The south-pointing chariot offered an unparalleled sense of assurance. It was the ancient world's GPS, albeit one you couldn't put in your pocket. However, it wasn't without its challenges. Calibrating the chariot was a painstaking process, and the precision required for the gears meant that only the most skilled artisans could construct and repair them. It's a matter of debate if these chariots were widely used or remained primarily symbolic and ceremonial devices. While accounts suggest their deployment in battle, their complexity likely limited mass production, making them rare and precious instruments. You can almost hear the grumbling of the imperial repairman, cursing under his breath as he tries to realign a minuscule gear train. The knowledge of how to build the south-pointing chariot was repeatedly lost and rediscovered throughout Chinese history, much like a particularly tricky recipe that keeps getting misplaced. Each time it re-emerged, it was a testament to the enduring ingenuity and the persistence of Chinese engineers. The very fact that this knowledge was sometimes forgotten, only to be reverse-engineered again centuries later, tells you something about the difficulty and specialized nature of its construction. It wasn't something you could easily replicate from a casual glance. Think about the context of the time. This was an era of horses and carts, of human-powered everything. To devise a self-correcting mechanical system of this complexity was a profound leap in engineering thought. It required a deep understanding of rotational dynamics, of friction, and of the precise relationship between moving parts. It wasn't simply about making something turn, it was about making something correct its turn, automatically. This puts it firmly in the realm of early cybernetics, if you want to get really fancy with your terminology. The south-pointing chariot is more than just a historical curiosity, it's a tangible example of the brilliance that blossomed in ancient China, often independently of developments in the West. While Europe was grappling with simpler mechanical problems, Chinese engineers were already perfecting intricate gear systems that wouldn't see widespread use elsewhere for many centuries. It's a quiet testament to a road less traveled, a path of mechanical innovation that often gets overlooked in the grand narrative of global history. You can almost feel the gentle rotation of the gears, the smooth, unwavering pivot of the pointing figure, as you contemplate the vastness of the ancient world and the cleverness required to navigate it. The chariot rolls on, a silent sentinel, always pointing south, a symbol of human perseverance and the relentless pursuit of understanding the world around us, even if that understanding is expressed through a beautifully complex assembly of wood and brass. The sun begins to dip lower, casting long shadows, and the south-pointing chariot continues its steady course, lulling you further into the gentle embrace of forgotten history. The imperial procession has faded into the distance, and now you find yourself in a quiet courtyard, bathed in the soft glow of a perpetually burning lamp, its light casting dancing shadows. But your attention is drawn to something far more intriguing, a large, ornate bronze vessel, resembling a wine jar, with 9 dragons adorning its sides, each holding a bronze ball in its mouth. Around the base, 8 bronze toads sit, their mouths agape. This is the seismograph of Zhongheng, the world's first known earthquake detector, a truly astonishing piece of ancient technology from the Eastern Han Dynasty, around 132 CE. You lean in closer, a sense of quiet wonder settling over you. How could a device so ancient, so seemingly simple, detect something as powerful and unpredictable as an earthquake? This isn't just a historical curiosity, it's a testament to a scientific understanding that was remarkably sophisticated for its time. Zhongheng, a brilliant polymath, an astronomer, mathematician, inventor, geographer, artist, and poet, was the mind behind this marvel. He was the kind of person who, if he were alive today, would probably have about 6 different YouTube channels, each dedicated to a different obscure scientific pursuit. The mechanism itself is a stroke of pure genius, relying on a principle called the inverted pendulum. Imagine a pendulum, but instead of hanging down, it stands upright, balanced precariously. Even the slightest tremor would cause it to wobble. Zhongheng's seismograph had just such a mechanism hidden within its bronze exterior. At its core was a delicate, centrally suspended pendulum, so finely balanced that it would react to the faintest ground vibrations. This isn't your average clock pendulum, this was a highly sensitive instrument, designed to detect subtle shifts in the Earth's crust. Here's how it reportedly worked, and it's delightfully intricate. When an earthquake occurred, the internal pendulum would swing in the direction of the tremor. This swing would then trigger a series of levers. Each lever, in turn, was connected to one of the dragons on the outside of the vessel. The activated dragon's mouth would open, releasing the bronze ball it held. The ball would then fall into the open mouth of the bronze toad directly below it, making a distinct clang. You can almost hear the soft metallic clink as a ball drops. What makes this so remarkable is that the device not only detected the earthquake but also indicated its direction. If the ball dropped from the dragon facing east, it meant the earthquake had occurred to the east. This provided crucial information for imperial authorities, allowing them to dispatch aid to affected regions far more quickly than if they had to wait for messengers to arrive with news of the devastation. It was, in essence, an early warning system, though it warned after the fact of the earthquake, rather than before. One mainstream historical fact about Zhongheng's seismograph is that official histories record it successfully detecting an earthquake in Longxi, modern-day Gansu province, in 134 CE, an event that was not felt in Luoyang, the capital. Days later, a messenger arrived confirming the earthquake, validating the device's accuracy and Zhongheng's genius. This incident solidified its reputation and demonstrated its practical utility, far beyond being a mere curiosity. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, some scholars suggest that the internal pendulum might have been designed not just as a simple inverted pendulum, but possibly as a compound pendulum or even a magnetic pendulum, though the latter is highly speculative given the understanding of magnetism at the time. The precise details of the internal mechanism were lost to history, relying largely on textual descriptions, leading to much scholarly debate. This brings us to our phrase indicating scholarly debate. It's a matter of debate if the internal mechanism was solely mechanical or incorporated any other subtle principles to enhance its sensitivity. Modern reconstructions have attempted to recreate it, but the exact historical blueprint remains elusive. The very concept of predicting or even detecting earthquakes was revolutionary. In a world where natural disasters were often attributed to angry deities or cosmic imbalances, Zhongheng approached the problem with a rational, scientific mind. He wasn't trying to appease the gods, he was trying to understand the Earth's movements through observation and mechanical principles. You feel a sense of profound respect for this ancient scientist, who sought to bring order and understanding to the chaotic forces of nature. The bronze casting itself would have been a significant feat of engineering and artistry. The dragons and toads are not just decorative, they are integral to the function of the device, acting as both indicators and aesthetic elements. The precision required in casting these components, ensuring the dragons' mouths could open and close smoothly, and that the balls would fall reliably, speaks volumes about the metallurgical and artisanal skills of the Han Dynasty. You trace the smooth lines of a dragon, imagining the skilled hands that sculpted and cast this magnificent piece. It's easy to dismiss such ancient inventions as primitive, but you must remember the context. This device predates the first European seismoscopes by over 1,500 years. It truly stands as a testament to the advanced scientific thinking that was present in ancient China, often developing independently and following different conceptual paths than those taken in the West. It highlights how much knowledge we sometimes take for granted, assuming a linear progression of scientific discovery when, in reality, it was much more complex and multifaceted. Think about the psychological impact of such a device. In times of uncertainty and fear regarding earthquakes, having a tangible instrument that could offer some form of objective information, even if it was just directional, must have been incredibly reassuring. It shifted the perception from pure superstition to a glimmer of scientific understanding, giving people a sense of agency in the face of overwhelming natural forces. You imagine the emperor anxiously awaiting the telltale clang, and the subsequent relief, or perhaps trepidation, as the direction of the tremor was revealed. The seismograph of Zhongheng, though its precise internal workings are shrouded in the mists of time and scholarly discussion, remains a powerful symbol of ancient Chinese innovation. It's a quiet whisper of a time when the Earth's rumblings were listened to, not just with fear, but with a keen, inquisitive scientific ear, leading to a mechanical marvel that captured the very tremors of the planet. And as you contemplate the intricate balance of this ancient detector, you feel your own balance gently shifting, your eyelids growing heavier, as the echoes of ancient ingenuity lull you deeper into relaxation. The faint echo of the seismograph's dropped ball recedes, and now you find yourself in the hushed, cavernous chambers beneath an imperial palace, a place of hushed secrets and careful movements. The air is cool and still, and you notice a soft, unwavering glow emanating from recesses in the walls. These aren't flickering torches or sputtering oil lamps. This is the perpetual lamp, an ancient Chinese invention designed to burn for extraordinarily long durations, illuminating imperial secrets and adding to the mystique of the elite. You approach one of these lamps, a sense of quiet curiosity washing over you. It's not just a lamp, it's a statement of power and ingenuity. Imagine the sheer convenience, in an era before electricity, of having a light source that required minimal attention, burning steadily day and night, perhaps for weeks or even months. This wasn't just about light, it was about efficiency, about control, and about the mastery of materials. The secret to these long-burning lamps lay in their clever design and, more importantly, in their unique fuel sources. While conventional lamps relied on animal fat or vegetable oils that burned quickly and produced a lot of smoke, the perpetual lamps often utilized substances with much higher fat content, or even mineral oils, combined with ingenious mechanisms to manage fuel delivery and wick consumption. Think of it as the ancient world's equivalent of a slow-release energy bar, but for light. One of the most common, and perhaps morbidly fascinating, fuel sources for these lamps was human fat. Yes, you heard that right. Accounts from various historical texts, particularly regarding tomb lamps, suggest that the fat of deceased individuals, sometimes criminals or even specific individuals designated for the purpose, was rendered and used as fuel. The idea was that human fat burned very slowly and consistently. You feel a slight shiver run down your spine at the thought, a macabre yet undeniably efficient use of resources in a pre-industrial age. This is certainly a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, reminding you that ancient solutions weren't always pretty. Another, less unsettling, but equally effective fuel often employed was whale oil. China, with its extensive coastline and maritime activities, would have had access to whale blubber, which could be rendered into a highly efficient, long-burning oil. The density and calorific value of whale oil made it far superior to common vegetable oils for sustained illumination. Furthermore, sophisticated lamp designs incorporated features like self-trimming wicks or systems that allowed for a gradual, controlled feeding of fuel to the flame, preventing rapid consumption and excessive smoke. A mainstream historical fact is that ever-burning lamps, or long-lasting lamps, are frequently mentioned in ancient Chinese texts, particularly in connection with elaborate tombs and underground chambers. These lamps were often intended to provide light for the deceased in the afterlife, a testament to the belief in a journey beyond life and the practical need for perpetual illumination in sealed environments. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, is rumored to contain such lamps, though they remain unverified due to the tomb's unopened status. It's a matter of debate if all so-called perpetual lamps genuinely burned for decades or centuries, or if many were merely designed for extended periods, perhaps weeks or months, and their longevity exaggerated in legend. The extreme claims often lean more towards folklore than scientific fact, though the underlying engineering principles for long-duration burning were undeniably present. You imagine the excited whispers of locals, passing down tales of lamps that had been burning since their grandparents were children. The engineering behind these lamps wasn't just about the fuel, it was also about managing the burning process itself. Consider the wick. A typical wick would char and require constant trimming. These perpetual lamps likely used wicks made from asbestos, a material known to the Chinese for its fire-resistant properties, or perhaps wicks interwoven with fine metal strands that resisted charring. The lamp's design would also often include a reservoir for the fuel, sometimes sealed to prevent evaporation, and a system to draw the fuel up to the flame at a very slow, controlled rate, maximizing its burn time. You realize that these lamps were not just functional objects but also imbued with symbolic meaning. A light that never goes out could represent eternal life, divine presence, or the enduring legacy of a ruler. For emperors, a perpetually lit chamber might have conveyed a sense of ultimate power, defiance of the natural order of day and night. It's a quiet flex of ancient technological prowess, a subtle assertion of dominance over the limitations of the natural world. The environment in which these lamps were often placed, sealed tombs or underground complexes, also played a role in their longevity. Without drafts or significant oxygen fluctuations, the flame could burn more stably and efficiently. The cool, stable temperatures of underground chambers would also help to preserve the fuel, preventing it from degrading or evaporating too quickly. You can almost feel the still, cool air around you, ideal conditions for a lamp that never truly sleeps. While the concept of perpetual might be an exaggeration for most, the ability to create a lamp that could burn for a week or even a month without human intervention would have been a monumental achievement. Think of the labor saved, the constant need for servants to tend to lights removed. It was a luxury, certainly, but a luxury born of clever engineering and an acute understanding of combustion. The rediscovery of some of these ancient lamps in archaeological digs, though often extinguished by the time of discovery, provides tantalizing clues to their construction. Analysis of residues found within them often confirms the use of various animal fats or mineral oils, supporting the historical accounts. It's like finding the faint scent of a long-lost perfume, hinting at a forgotten era. These forgotten inventions, like the perpetual lamp, remind you that even the simplest needs, like light in the darkness, drove incredible innovation in the ancient world. The ingenuity wasn't always about grand machines, but often about perfecting everyday necessities, bending the laws of nature, just a little, to suit human convenience. And as the soft, constant glow of the perpetual lamp bathes you in its gentle light, you feel a deep sense of calm, ready to drift further into the quiet annals of forgotten history. The soft, steady glow of the perpetual lamp fades, and now you find yourself on a windswept hill, the distant landscape sprawling beneath a vast, ancient sky. You hear a curious rustling sound above, and looking up, you see them, enormous, elegant shapes, soaring and dipping on the currents of air. These aren't birds, but something far more ingenious, kites, large and intricate, used by ancient Chinese armies for aerial reconnaissance and communication, long before anyone even dreamed of a hot air balloon, let alone an airplane. You watch, mesmerized, as one particularly large kite, perhaps 20 feet across, hovers steadily, a tiny figure, barely visible, seemingly clinging to its frame. This isn't recreation, this is a serious military application. Imagine the tactical advantage, seeing enemy troop movements, mapping their fortifications, or even signaling across vast distances, all from a perspective no ground soldier could ever achieve. It was the ancient world's drone surveillance, but with a lot more string and a much higher risk of falling. The history of kites in China stretches back thousands of years, with legends attributing their invention to figures like Mozi and Lu Ban as early as the 5th century BCE. These early kites were likely simpler, perhaps made of bamboo and silk, primarily for amusement or religious ceremonies. However, it was their transformation into instruments of war that truly highlights their ingenuity. A mainstream historical fact is that during the Chu-Han contention, 206 to 202 BCE, General Han Xin of the Han dynasty reportedly used kites to calculate the distance to an enemy stronghold. By flying a kite over the enemy's city and measuring the length of the string, he could accurately determine the range for his archers or plan attack routes. This was sophisticated range finding, done with nothing but wind, string, and silk. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit. Some historical accounts, though highly debated and bordering on legend, suggest that some of the largest kites were even capable of lifting a human observer. The story of Gong Shu Ban, a contemporary of Mozi, describes him constructing a wooden bird that flew for 3 days without landing. While the literal interpretation of this as an early manned flight device is heavily disputed, it's more likely a sophisticated, very large glider kite. The idea of human aerial ascent was clearly present in ancient Chinese thought. It's a matter of debate if the wooden birds were true gliders or exceptionally large kites capable of carrying very light payloads for short distances, or if these accounts are entirely metaphorical. The distinction between a very large kite and a rudimentary glider becomes quite blurry in these ancient narratives. The materials used for these early military kites were crucial. Bamboo, known for its strength and flexibility, formed the framework. Silk, lightweight yet incredibly strong and durable, was the preferred material for the kite surface, offering excellent aerodynamic properties. The adhesives used were typically natural glues derived from animal products, carefully applied to ensure the kite remained taut and airtight. You can almost feel the smooth, slightly coarse texture of the silk, stretched taut against the bamboo frame, catching the wind. Beyond reconnaissance and range finding, kites served as vital communication devices. Imagine signaling across valleys or over enemy lines using colored kites, or patterns of kite flight. A specific dip, a certain height, or a sudden descent could convey messages that would be impossible to send through traditional means. It was a visual telegraph system, powered by the wind, offering a silent, swift method of transmitting orders or reporting observations in real time. The art of kite flying for military purposes would have required immense skill. Not just in constructing the kite, but in understanding wind currents, thermal updrafts, and how to maneuver the kite to achieve the desired observation or signal. It wasn't just about launching a kite, it was about piloting it, expertly manipulating the strings to guide its trajectory and position. You can picture a seasoned kite master, his eyes narrowed against the sun, his hands deftly working the multiple lines, coaxing the silk bird to perform its duty. The strategic implications were enormous. Being able to see what your enemy was doing, without them knowing you were watching, was a significant advantage. It allowed commanders to anticipate attacks, prepare defenses, or launch surprise maneuvers. The sheer psychological impact on the enemy, seeing a strange, silent object hovering above their camp, must have been unsettling. Was it a god? A demon? Or just some very clever string and silk? The mystery alone would have been a weapon. While the large, man-carrying kites are mostly legendary, the use of kites for observation and signaling is well documented and undeniably practical. These were sophisticated instruments, designed for specific military objectives, rather than mere recreational toys. They represent a unique branch of early aeronautical engineering, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of aerodynamics and lift. It's a quiet testament to the idea that innovation doesn't always come from brute force, but often from elegant solutions that harness natural phenomena. The development of kites also paved the way for later innovations. The understanding of airflow, lift, and control gained from kite design would subtly influence other areas of Chinese engineering, perhaps even in shipbuilding or the design of early flying lanterns. The knowledge wasn't explicitly transferred to other fields in a direct line, but the underlying principles of physics and aerodynamics would have been absorbed and applied elsewhere. It's a diffuse influence, like the subtle currents of the wind itself. You continue to watch the kites dance in the sky, their silent movements a stark contrast to the cacophony of ancient battles. They represent a forgotten frontier of ancient warfare, a quiet, airborne revolution that often gets overlooked by the more dramatic tales of swords and sieges. And as the sun begins to dip lower, casting long shadows across the rolling hills, the kites slowly descend, their mission complete, pulling you gently into the deepening twilight of history. The graceful descent of the ancient kites gives way to a new, enchanting sound in your ancient Chinese reverie, the delicate tinkling of bells, the soft thrum of strings, and the gentle whisper of flutes. You're no longer on a windswept hill, but within a lavish imperial hall, surrounded by exquisite silks and polished jade. In the center of the room, not a human ensemble, but an array of intricate figures, crafted from wood and bronze, appear to be playing musical instruments with astonishing precision. This is the mechanical orchestra, a testament to the ancient Chinese fascination with automata and their surprising ability to create automated musical performances. You watch in quiet awe, almost expecting one of the figures to wink at you, recalling the tale of Yenshi's cheeky automaton. But these figures are dedicated musicians, their movements synchronized, their purpose solely to delight the emperor and his court. Imagine the sheer wonder, in an age before phonographs or even complex clockwork music boxes, of witnessing an ensemble perform without human hands guiding each note. It was the ultimate display of luxury and technological prowess, a concert where the performers never missed a beat and never demanded a raise. Accounts of these mechanical orchestras often come from historical texts describing imperial banquets and grand celebrations. While the precise details of their internal mechanisms are often vague, the descriptions speak of figures that could strike drums, pluck strings, blow into pipes, and even dance in time with the music. It wasn't a matter of random noise, it was an orchestrated, albeit mechanically produced, symphony. A mainstream historical fact, the most detailed descriptions of such automated musical devices come from the Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, a golden age of innovation and cultural flourishing. During this period, the Emperor Xuanzong, 712 to 756 CE, was known to have a particular fondness for mechanical curiosities, including automated performers. These weren't just simple figures, they were often part of larger, elaborate displays, perhaps accompanying a mechanical wine dispenser or a rotating tableau. This highlights a trend of integrating complex automata into courtly entertainment. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, some scholars suggest that the music produced by these mechanical orchestras wasn't always directly played by the figures themselves, but rather, the figures simulated playing, while the actual sound was produced by hidden bellows, pipes, or resonators within the main apparatus. The figures served as a visual spectacle, enhancing the illusion of autonomous performance. It's a bit like a cleverly designed lip-sync battle, but with ancient technology. It's a matter of debate if every single instrument depicted was truly played by the automaton, or if some were purely visual aids to a central sound-producing mechanism. The line between illusion and pure mechanical replication was often blurred for maximum dramatic effect. The engineering behind these mechanical orchestras would have been astonishingly complex. It required not just an understanding of gears and levers, but also a profound grasp of timing and sequence. Think about it, a drum needs to be struck at a precise moment, a string plucked for a specific duration, a flute-like sound produced at the right pitch. This implied the use of camshafts or rotating cylinders with pegs, similar to those found in later European music boxes, which would activate the various levers and mechanisms at pre-programmed intervals. Each peg, each bump on the cam, would correspond to a specific note or action, creating a mechanical score. The materials would have been exquisitely chosen, fine woods, polished bronze, silk threads for internal workings, and perhaps even carefully tuned bamboo pipes or metal chimes for sound production. The artisans who crafted these pieces were not just engineers, they were artists, infusing their creations with both mechanical genius and aesthetic beauty. You imagine the meticulous carving of each hand, each finger, positioned just so, ready to strike a miniature drum or pluck a delicate string. The purpose of these mechanical orchestras was multifaceted. Primarily, they served as a symbol of the emperor's wealth, power, and the technological advancement of his realm. To be able to command such intricate, non-human performers was a demonstration of ultimate control and access to unparalleled ingenuity. They also provided novelty and entertainment, offering something truly unique and mesmerizing to the royal court, distinguishing their banquets from those of lesser mortals. Beyond the entertainment, these creations might have subtly contributed to the development of precision engineering. The need for accurate timing, consistent movement, and synchronized actions would have pushed the boundaries of mechanical design. Lessons learned from perfecting a mechanical drummer could, in theory, be applied to more practical devices requiring similar precision, though direct links are rarely explicit in historical texts. It's a subtle ripple effect, like the gentle vibration of a drum skin. You consider the philosophical implications. In a culture that highly valued harmony and order, the creation of machines that could produce harmonious music without human error might have held a special appeal. It was a kind of perfect order, a controlled beauty, reflecting perhaps the desired harmony of the imperial court itself. The automatons played tirelessly, flawlessly, without ego or dissent, the perfect subjects, in a way. The accounts of these mechanical orchestras, though sometimes embellished by the passing of centuries, paint a vivid picture of a culture that embraced technological marvels for both utility and spectacle. They show a willingness to experiment, to combine artistry with engineering, and to push the boundaries of what was thought possible with gears, levers, and clever design. It reminds you that the pursuit of entertainment has often been a powerful driver of innovation, leading to breakthroughs that sometimes found their way into more mundane, practical applications. As the gentle, rhythmic sounds of the mechanical orchestra fill the air, a peaceful lull washes over you. The figures play on, their silent, precise movements a timeless ballet of ancient engineering, pulling you deeper into a tranquil state, where the marvels of the past slowly blur into the quietude of the present. The harmonious, if somewhat eerie, melodies of the mechanical orchestra gently fade, and you find yourself no longer in an opulent hall, but near the banks of a wide, flowing river. The air is fresh, carrying the scent of water and distant reeds. On the river's surface, a vessel unlike any you've seen before glides by, not propelled by oars or sails, but by large, rotating wheels on its sides. These are the early paddle boats, remarkable innovations from ancient China that revolutionized naval travel and warfare, providing a glimpse into a world far ahead of its time in maritime technology. You watch with a mixture of quiet fascination and gentle awe as the paddles steadily churn the water, pushing the boat forward with a rhythmic efficiency. In an era dominated by human-powered galleys or wind-dependent sailing junks, a vessel that moved under its own sustained mechanical power was nothing short of revolutionary. It was the ancient world's answer to steam power, but with a lot more muscle and a distinct lack of hot air. The development of paddle boats in China can be traced back to at least the 5th or 6th century CE, during the Southern Dynasty's period, long before similar designs appeared in the West. These early paddle boats were not simply experimental curiosities, they were built for practical purposes, primarily for military use on rivers and lakes, offering a significant tactical advantage over traditional oared vessels. A mainstream historical fact, the most famous and well-documented early paddle boats were the treadwheel boats, or paddle wheel warships, developed during the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, and refined during the Song Dynasty, 9601-279 CE. These were often large vessels, sometimes with multiple paddle wheels on each side, propelled by human power. Soldiers inside the hull would literally tread on a system of pedals connected to a central shaft, much like a giant treadmill, which in turn rotated the paddle wheels. Accounts describe some of these ships being quite formidable, capable of carrying hundreds of men and various armaments. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, some historical records suggest that smaller versions of these paddle wheel boats were occasionally used for recreational purposes by the wealthy elite, fitted with elaborate canopies and even small cabins for leisure excursions. Imagine taking a leisurely Sunday cruise on an ancient Chinese paddle boat, perhaps with a mechanical orchestra playing in the background. It's a charming thought, and a testament to the versatility of the technology. It's a matter of debate if the earliest designs were truly effective in open water or if their practical utility was limited primarily to calmer rivers and lakes. The stability and propulsion in strong currents would have been a significant engineering challenge. The engineering brilliance lay in the simple yet effective translation of human rotational power into propulsive force. The concept of the paddle wheel itself was ingenious. Instead of pushing water with oars, which is discontinuous and often inefficient, the rotating paddles provided a continuous, steady thrust. This allowed for greater speed, less fatigue for the crew, as the treading motion was more ergonomic than rowing, and crucially, the ability to move against strong currents, which was a game-changer for logistics and strategic deployment. The larger paddle wheel warships of the Song dynasty were particularly impressive. They often had several paddle wheels arranged in series on either side of the hull, sometimes numbering as many as 20 or more on a single vessel. These were not small boats, some were essentially floating fortresses, equipped with catapults and even early forms of gunpowder weapons. The sheer scale and ambition of these designs speak volumes about the advanced naval engineering capabilities of the time. You can almost feel the powerful thrum of the turning wheels, the surge of the water as it's displaced, propelling these ancient behemoths forward. The development of paddle boats also had significant implications for naval tactics. They offered greater maneuverability than traditional sailing vessels, especially in confined waterways, and their speed could often outmatch oared boats, allowing for rapid deployment or quick retreats. This mechanical propulsion freed up space on deck that would otherwise be occupied by rowers, allowing for more soldiers or weaponry. It was a clear demonstration of how technological innovation could drastically alter the dynamics of ancient warfare. While initially human-powered, some theories suggest that later paddle boats might have explored, or at least contemplated, the use of animal power or even rudimentary water-powered mechanisms to assist propulsion, though concrete evidence for widespread application of these is scarce. The continuous treading motion, however, was likely the primary method for centuries, requiring coordinated human effort to keep the wheels turning. You can almost hear the rhythmic thump-thump of ancient soldiers treading away, probably with a good deal of grumbling. The knowledge of paddle wheel propulsion, like many other Chinese innovations, eventually made its way westward, influencing later European designs. However, the initial independent development in China highlights a distinct trajectory of mechanical invention that often surprises those unfamiliar with the depth of ancient Chinese technological achievements. It's a quiet reminder that the flow of innovation wasn't a one-way street. As the paddle boat glides silently past, its steady rhythm is calming. You realize that even something as seemingly simple as a spinning wheel on the side of a boat can embody centuries of cumulative engineering knowledge and a profound impact on human history. These were the vessels that carried armies, facilitated trade, and moved people across vast distances with unprecedented efficiency. And as the paddle boat slowly recedes into the distance, its rhythmic churning leaves you with a lingering sense of peace, drawing you deeper into the quiet currents of sleep. The steady rhythmic splash of the paddle boat fades into the background, and now you find yourself in a different kind of chamber, one where the air hums with intellectual pursuit rather than mechanical propulsion. You're observing a truly magnificent and complex device, taller than a person, made of bronze and intricately adorned. Gears subtly whir, water gently drips, and miniature figures periodically emerge and retract, indicating the passage of time and the positions of celestial bodies. This is the water-powered armillary sphere, a monumental astronomical instrument that mirrored the heavens on Earth, developed by brilliant minds like Zhongheng and refined by others, particularly in the Song dynasty. You gaze up, feeling dwarfed by its complexity and beauty. This wasn't merely a clock, it was a cosmic model, a working replica of the universe as understood by ancient Chinese astronomers. Imagine the awe of a courtier, or even an emperor, witnessing this marvel, its gears turning silently, its pointers aligning with the stars above, all powered by the continuous flow of water. It was the ancient world's planetarium and observatory rolled into one, a profound blend of engineering and cosmology. The concept of an armillary sphere dates back centuries in China, used for observing and plotting celestial movements. However, the innovation that elevated it to a truly extraordinary level was the integration of a complex water-powered mechanism. This allowed the sphere to rotate automatically, synchronizing its movements with the actual celestial sphere, essentially providing a continuous, real-time representation of the cosmos. A mainstream historical fact, the most famous and sophisticated water-powered armillary sphere was built by Song in the 11th century CE during the Song dynasty. His cosmic engine, also known as the water-powered astronomical clock tower, was a colossal structure, over 30 feet tall, housing an armillary sphere, a celestial globe, and mechanical figures that struck bells and gongs to indicate the hours. It incorporated an escapement mechanism, a crucial component for regulating the speed of clocks, centuries before its widespread use in European clockmaking. This was precision timing on an epic scale. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, Song's original clock tower was so massive and complex that it required a team of dedicated technicians to maintain it, a kind of ancient IT department for astronomical instruments. They would constantly monitor the water flow, lubricate gears, and ensure the entire system remained perfectly synchronized with the heavens. It wasn't a set-it-and-forget-it kind of device. It's a matter of debate if the primary purpose of these grand devices was practical astronomical observation, or if their symbolic and ceremonial functions, demonstrating imperial power and cosmic harmony, were equally, if not more, important. Perhaps it was a bit of both, a beautiful fusion of utility and spectacle. The engineering behind Su Song's cosmic engine was astounding. It involved a sophisticated system of water wheels, gear trains, and the escapement mechanism to regulate the flow of power. The water, often collected in a constant level tank to ensure steady pressure, would flow into scoops on a large water wheel. As the scoops filled, the wheel would turn, slowly but continuously, transferring its motion through a series of gears to the armillary sphere, the celestial globe, and the various time-telling figures. You can almost hear the gentle splash and drip of the water, the soft whir of unseen gears, a lullaby of ancient mechanics. The armillary sphere itself consisted of concentric rings, representing different celestial coordinates like the equator, the ecliptic, the path of the sun, and the meridian. Pointers on these rings would track the positions of the sun, moon, and visible planets and stars. It was a physical manifestation of complex astronomical calculations, making the movements of the cosmos tangible and observable. For the ancient Chinese, understanding the heavens was crucial for predicting agricultural seasons, validating imperial rule, the mandate of heaven, and even for divination. The precision required for such a device was immense. Any slight imperfection in the gears, any inconsistency in the water flow, could throw off the entire system. The artisans and engineers who built these spheres had to have an almost obsessive attention to detail, meticulously crafting each component to ensure flawless operation. It was a true collaboration between metallurgists, mechanics, and astronomers. The water-powered armillary sphere stands as a towering example of integrated technology. It combined hydraulic engineering, advanced gearing, timekeeping, and astronomical knowledge into a single, breathtaking machine. It highlights the multidisciplinary approach to innovation that was characteristic of ancient Chinese scholarship, where the boundaries between science, engineering, and philosophy were often fluid. As you contemplate this grand cosmic engine, you reflect on the human desire to understand our place in the universe. From simple star charts to these elaborate mechanical models, humanity has always sought to map the heavens and discern its patterns. The water-powered armillary sphere was perhaps the most ambitious attempt in the ancient world to bring the distant stars down to Earth, to make the cosmic dance visible and understandable for all to see. The soft hum of the gears and the gentle trickle of water create a soothing backdrop, pulling you deeper into a state of quiet contemplation. You imagine the ancient astronomers, their faces lit by the gentle glow of the sphere, charting the movements of planets, unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos. And as the celestial sphere slowly turns, its silent movements mirror the turning of time, drawing you further into the tranquil embrace of sleep. The gentle whirring of the water-powered armillary sphere slowly recedes, replaced by a subtle shift in the air around you. You're no longer in a scholarly chamber, but rather a grand, sun-drenched pavilion, probably belonging to a high-ranking official or the emperor himself. A gentle breeze seems to flow through the space, surprisingly cool and refreshing, defying the stifling heat that you know must be pressing down outside. This, my friend, is your encounter with ancient air conditioning, the ingenious, albeit rudimentary, attempts at climate control for the comfort of the elite in ancient China. You feel the slight relief, a welcome respite from the imagined historical humidity. In an era long before Freon and humming compressors, the pursuit of comfort in oppressive heat was a luxury reserved for the very powerful. This wasn't about chilling a whole building, it was about creating localized pockets of coolness, oases of comfort in sweltering summers. Think of it as the ultimate luxury good, far more practical than a mechanical orchestra if you're trying to avoid a heat stroke. The principles behind ancient Chinese air conditioning were based on cleverly manipulating natural elements, water and wind. It wasn't about refrigeration, but about evaporation and airflow management. They understood that moving air felt cooler and that evaporating water could draw heat from the surroundings. A mainstream historical fact, during the Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, Emperor Xuanzong, the same one who liked mechanical orchestras, reportedly had a cool hall, or liangjian, at his palace. This hall was designed with ingenious water features, including water wheels that would draw water from nearby streams or reservoirs. This water was then directed to cascade over strategically placed fans or through conduits beneath the floors, creating a continuous flow of cool air through the building. It was essentially an early form of an evaporative cooler, scaled up for imperial comfort. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, some accounts suggest that besides water, large blocks of ice, harvested from frozen lakes in winter and stored in insulated underground ice houses, which the Chinese were also quite good at constructing, were sometimes used in these cool halls during peak summer months. These ice blocks would be placed near the water features or in special vents, adding an extra layer of cooling to the circulating air. Imagine the sheer logistical effort required to transport and store massive quantities of ice just for a bit of imperial comfort. It's a matter of debate if the primary cooling effect came from the circulating water, the evaporation, or from the less frequent but more direct cooling provided by ice, particularly given the effort involved in its storage. The exact ratio of these methods likely varied depending on the season and the specific imperial building. The engineering involved a sophisticated understanding of hydraulics and air circulation. The water wheels weren't just decorative, they were functional power sources, driving the fans or circulating the water. The design of the conduits and vents would have been crucial, ensuring that the cooled air was effectively distributed throughout the desired space. It wasn't just about splashing water around, it was about creating a controlled microclimate within the pavilion. You can almost feel the damp, cool air circulating, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat outside. These early attempts at climate control highlight a society capable of investing significant resources and intellectual power into the pursuit of comfort for its ruling class. It speaks to a level of sophistication where basic needs were long met, allowing for the indulgence in advanced luxuries. For an emperor, being able to provide a cool sanctuary during the hottest months was not just a personal comfort, it was another demonstration of his divine mandate and his ability to command resources and ingenuity beyond that of ordinary mortals. The cool halls weren't just about the mechanics, they were also about the aesthetics. These spaces would often be beautifully landscaped, with lush gardens, flowing water features, and delicate screens, all contributing to an overall ambience of tranquility and coolness. It was an integrated approach to environmental design, where form and function were equally important. You can almost see the sunlight dappling through bamboo screens, hear the gentle splash of water, and feel the refreshing breeze. While these systems weren't as efficient or widespread as modern air conditioning, they represent a significant step in the history of environmental control. They demonstrate an early understanding of thermal dynamics and airflow, applying scientific principles to improve human comfort. It's a quiet testament to the enduring human desire to tame the elements, to make our surroundings more hospitable. The knowledge gleaned from these cooling innovations might have subtly influenced other areas of architecture and urban planning, though perhaps not in direct or explicit ways. The understanding of how water and air interact, how to channel breezes, and how to create shaded, evaporative spaces could have informed the design of courtyards, residences, and even public areas, offering a touch of comfort to broader populations, albeit in much simpler forms. You linger in the coolness of the pavilion, savoring the gentle breeze, and contemplating the ingenuity required to achieve such comfort in a world without electricity or advanced materials. The ancient Chinese, with their mastery of hydraulics and their keen observation of natural phenomena, found ways to bend nature to their will, even if only for the privileged few. And as the cool air soothes your senses, you feel your own thoughts beginning to slow, drifting lazily, just like the breeze, into the depths of historical relaxation. The refreshing coolness of the ancient pavilion slowly dissipates, and now you find yourself on a sun-drenched battlefield, the distant shouts of ancient soldiers echoing softly. You hear a distinctive thwack 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 sound, a rapid succession of impacts, far too quick to be a single archer. You look towards the sound and see soldiers wielding a curious weapon, loading and firing bolts with astonishing speed. This is the repeating crossbow, a formidable and fearsome invention from ancient China that allowed for rapid, successive shots, revolutionizing the pace of ancient warfare. You watch, mesmerized, as an operator, with seemingly effortless movements, loads a magazine and fires a flurry of bolts. This isn't your grandfather's single-shot crossbow. This is a weapon designed for volume fire, for overwhelming an enemy with a barrage of projectiles. It was the ancient world's machine gun, albeit one powered by human brawn rather than gunpowder, and with a considerably shorter range. The repeating crossbow, known in Chinese as the Zhuge Nu, literally, Zhuge's crossbow, is traditionally attributed to the strategist Zhuge Liang of the Three Kingdoms period, 3rd century CE. However, archaeological evidence suggests its origins might be even older, perhaps dating back to the Warring States period, 5th to 3rd century BCE. Regardless of its exact genesis, its impact on military tactics was undeniable. It represented a significant leap in offensive weapon technology. A mainstream historical fact, the repeating crossbow could fire multiple bolts, typically 10 to 12, in rapid succession from a top-mounted magazine, simply by pushing and pulling a lever. This allowed a single soldier to lay down a continuous stream of fire, making it far more effective than a standard crossbow, which required manual reloading after each shot. Imagine the psychological effect on an advancing enemy line facing such a rapid volley. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit. While traditionally attributed to Zhuge Liang, some historians argue that he may have only improved upon an existing design, or perhaps popularized it, rather than inventing it outright. The true origin might lie with earlier, anonymous engineers who laid the groundwork. It's a matter of debate if Zhuge Liang was the true inventor or merely the most famous proponent and refiner of the repeating crossbow. The exact historical credit often gets blurred between ingenious inventors and powerful patrons who champion their work. The mechanism of the repeating crossbow was remarkably clever in its simplicity. It integrated the cocking, loading, and firing actions into a single, continuous motion. As the user pushed a lever forward, it simultaneously pulled back the string, cocking the bow. Then, as the lever was pulled back, a bolt would drop from the magazine into place, and the string would release, firing the bolt. All in one smooth, fluid movement. This efficiency significantly increased the rate of fire, transforming a single-shot weapon into a continuous fire system. You can almost feel the satisfying thunk as a bolt seats itself, followed by the crisp snap of the string releasing its energy. The bolts themselves were typically smaller and lighter than those used in standard crossbows, compensating for the less powerful draw weight of the repeating mechanism. While lacking the penetrating power of a heavy crossbow bolt, the sheer volume of fire compensated for this. A repeating crossbow operator might not kill with every shot, but they could certainly wound, disorient, and pin down an enemy. In ancient close-quarters combat, a wounded soldier was often as good as a dead one, if not worse for enemy morale and logistics. These weapons were particularly effective in defensive situations, such as defending fortifications or city walls. A line of repeating crossbowmen positioned on a rampart could unleash a continuous storm of bolts, making it extremely difficult for attackers to approach or scale the walls. They were also useful in naval battles, providing a suppressive fire advantage against enemy vessels. You imagine waves of small, wooden projectiles raining down, turning an advance into a very bad day. The repeating crossbow's design shows a deep understanding of mechanical leverage and sequential action. It was a testament to the Chinese engineers' ability to streamline complex operations into a single, intuitive movement. This focus on efficiency and speed was a hallmark of many Chinese military innovations. While the repeating crossbow didn't entirely replace the more powerful single-shot crossbows or bows, it carved out a crucial niche for itself, especially where sustained, high-volume fire was needed. Its legacy is a fascinating chapter in the history of weaponry, demonstrating an early understanding of rapid-fire principles that wouldn't be fully explored in other cultures for centuries. You continue to watch the ancient soldiers, their movements practiced and precise, as they unleashed their volley of bolts. The sound is a quiet reminder of the ingenuity applied even to the destructive arts, a testament to the relentless human drive to gain an advantage, no matter the cost. And as the distant shouts of battle begin to soften, and the thwack-thwack of the crossbow bolts fades into a gentle hum, you feel the rhythms of ancient warfare gently lull you into a deeper, more peaceful state. The rhythmic thwack of the repeating crossbow fades, and now you find yourself in a quieter, more reflective space, a bustling workshop, filled with the faint scent of pulp and ink. You see artisans diligently working, pressing fibrous sheets, carving intricate blocks, and carefully applying pigments. This is the heart of paper and printing innovations from ancient China, a revolution that, while perhaps less dramatic than a weapon or a mechanical orchestra, laid the slow, steady groundwork for global literacy and the spread of knowledge. You sense the profound quiet diligence of the place, a stark contrast to the clamor of battle. Imagine a world where knowledge is fragile, written on bamboo slips or silk, cumbersome and expensive to reproduce. The invention of paper changed everything, and the subsequent development of printing made knowledge accessible in ways previously unimaginable. It was the ancient world's information superhighway, initially a winding dirt path, but destined to become a sprawling network. The invention of paper is often attributed to Cai Lun in 105 CE during the Eastern Han Dynasty, a mainstream historical fact that marks a pivotal moment in human history. Prior to this, writing materials were cumbersome, bamboo slips were heavy, silk was expensive, and parchment was not common in China. Cai Lun's innovation involved using a slurry of plant fibers, mulberry bark, hemp waste, old rags, and fishing nets, beaten into a pulp, spread thinly on a screen, and then dried into flexible sheets. This process created a durable, lightweight, and relatively inexpensive writing surface, making knowledge far more portable and reproducible. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit. While Cai Lun is credited with standardizing and popularizing paper, archaeological discoveries have unearthed even earlier fragments of paper-like material dating back to the 2nd century BCE, suggesting that rudimentary forms of paper existed before Cai Lun's formalization. He essentially took a nascent idea and perfected it for widespread use. It's a matter of debate if Cai Lun was truly the inventor or merely the greatest innovator in the refinement and mass production of paper. The origins of revolutionary technologies are often more complex than a single named individual. With paper came the natural progression to printing. Initially, this took the form of woodblock printing, which emerged during the Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907 CE. Imagine artisans meticulously carving an entire page of text or an image onto a single block of wood. Once carved, ink was applied to the raised surfaces, and a sheet of paper was pressed onto the block, transferring the image. This process, while still labor-intensive, allowed for the production of multiple identical copies much faster than manual copying. You can almost smell the faint, earthy scent of ink and freshly pressed paper. The earliest surviving printed book is the Diamond Sutra, a Buddhist scripture from 868 CE, discovered in the Mogao caves. This is a crucial mainstream historical fact, demonstrating the sophistication of early woodblock printing. It's a beautifully printed scroll, complete with intricate illustrations, showcasing the high level of skill achieved by these ancient printers. The evolution from woodblock to movable type was another monumental step. While Johannes Gutenberg often gets all the credit in the West, movable type was invented in China by Baixing between 1041 and 1048 CE during the Song dynasty. He developed ceramic movable type, where individual characters were carved into clay, fired to harden them, and then arranged on an iron frame to form a page. After printing, the characters could be disassembled and reused. This was a direct precursor to Gutenberg's metal movable type, centuries later. The challenges with movable type in China were unique, however. Chinese writing uses thousands of distinct characters, unlike the relatively small alphabet of Western languages. This meant that creating and storing a vast inventory of movable type was a formidable logistical challenge. This is a context that often causes scholarly debate. It's a matter of debate if the practical utility and widespread adoption of movable type in China were hindered by the sheer number of characters, making woodblock printing often more efficient for large print runs, especially for frequently used texts. The efficiency calculations for a phonetic alphabet versus a logographic system were vastly different. Despite these challenges, paper and printing had a profound impact on ancient Chinese society. They facilitated the widespread dissemination of Buddhist and Confucian texts, greatly increased literacy rates among the gentry and merchant classes, and revolutionized the civil service examination system by allowing for the production of standardized texts. Knowledge, once confined to elite circles, began its slow, inevitable journey towards broader accessibility. You trace the intricate lines on a carved woodblock, feeling the smoothness of the ink-stained surface. The patience and precision required for this craft were immense. Each character, each stroke, was a testament to the dedication of the ancient scribes and printers. They were not just making copies, they were preserving and transmitting culture, one sheet of paper at a time. These innovations also fostered a burgeoning book culture. Libraries grew, scholars had easier access to texts, and new forms of literature and scholarship emerged. The quiet revolution of paper and print allowed for the accumulation and sharing of knowledge on an unprecedented scale, laying the foundational stone for future scientific and cultural advancements. As you stand in this quiet workshop, witnessing the slow, methodical process of paper making and printing, you realize the enduring legacy of these forgotten inventions. They are the silent engines of intellectual progress, the quiet architects of modern literacy. And as the subtle aroma of pulp and ink gently surrounds you, a calming sense of historical continuity washes over you, pulling you deeper into the quiet, reassuring rhythm of sleep. The gentle scent of paper and ink from the ancient print shop recedes, and now you feel the intense heat of roaring furnaces, hear the clang of hammers, and smell the sharp tang of hot metal. You're standing in an ancient Chinese foundry, a place of immense power and transformative alchemy, where glowing ore becomes the backbone of an empire. This is the world of blast furnaces and steel production, advanced metallurgical techniques that enabled the mass production of iron and steel, far beyond the capabilities of many contemporary cultures. You feel the dry heat on your skin, see the sweat glistening on the brow of the ancient laborers. This isn't just a small forge, this is an industrial-scale operation, a testament to an understanding of metallurgy that allowed the Chinese to produce iron and steel in quantities and qualities unrivaled for centuries. It was the ancient world's heavy industry, powering everything from agricultural tools to formidable weaponry. The Chinese mastered iron casting and steel production far earlier and on a much larger scale than the West. While Europe was still relying heavily on bronze and wrought iron, the Chinese were already producing cast iron efficiently by the Warring States period, 5th to 3rd century BCE. This was largely due to their development of the blast furnace, a crucial innovation. A mainstream historical fact, the Chinese developed the blast furnace for smelting iron as early as the 4th century BCE. Unlike simpler bloomeries, which produced a spongy mass of wrought iron, the blast furnace achieved higher temperatures, over 1,100 degrees Celsius or 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, by introducing a continuous blast of air, often through bellows powered by water wheels. These high temperatures melted the iron ore, producing liquid cast iron, which could then be poured into molds to create various objects. This was a revolutionary step, allowing for mass production of iron tools and weapons. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, the earliest Chinese blast furnaces weren't just about the heat, they also benefited from the local geology. China had abundant reserves of phosphoric iron ore, and while phosphorus can make steel brittle, it lowers the melting point of iron, which was advantageous for early blast furnaces trying to reach sufficient temperatures with limited technology. Later, they learned to refine this by various processes. It's a matter of debate if the presence of phosphorus in early Chinese iron was primarily an accidental benefit for easier smelting, or if the ancient metallurgists intentionally sought out such ores for their lower melting points. The exact level of scientific understanding of these chemical properties is still discussed. The production of steel was an even more refined art. Steel is an iron alloy with a specific carbon content that gives it strength and flexibility. The Chinese developed several sophisticated methods for steel production, including the co-fusion process, also known as the 100 refinement process, where cast iron, high carbon, was melted together with wrought iron, low carbon, to achieve an intermediate carbon content suitable for steel. They also practiced quenching and tempering, heating and rapidly cooling steel to alter its properties, and folding and pattern welding, creating incredibly strong and resilient blades by repeatedly heating, folding, and hammering layers of iron and steel. You can almost feel the rhythmic hiss and clang of the bellows, forcing air into the glowing furnace, the shimmer of heat rising from the molten metal. The scale of these operations was impressive. Ancient Chinese ironworks were essentially early industrial complexes, capable of producing hundreds of thousands of tons of iron annually during their peak, a feat that would not be matched in Europe until the 18th century Industrial Revolution. The impact of this metallurgical prowess was profound. It led to superior agricultural tools like the iron plowshare, which allowed for more efficient farming and thus greater food production. In warfare, it meant stronger, sharper weapons, more durable armor, and more effective siege engines. The ability to mass-produce cast iron also led to the creation of large-scale infrastructure, like iron bridges and pagodas. The knowledge required for these processes was passed down through generations of master metallurgists. They understood, intuitively perhaps, the importance of precise temperatures, the right ratios of raw materials, iron ore, charcoal as a carbon source, and fluxing agents, and the careful control of the air blast. It was a craft refined through centuries of trial and error, observation, and experimentation. The sheer innovation in this field often goes unnoticed compared to more flashy inventions. Yet, the control over materials, particularly iron and steel, fundamentally underpinned much of Chinese society and its technological advancements. It was the material foundation upon which other innovations could be built. You step back from the intense heat, feeling the residual warmth on your face. The ancient Chinese mastery of iron and steel production was not just a technical achievement, it was a societal one, enabling agricultural prosperity, military dominance, and architectural endurance. And as the echoes of hammers on metal slowly subside, replaced by the gentle hum of unseen industry, you feel a deep sense of historical weight settling over you, easing you into a calm and peaceful state of rest. The intense heat of the ancient foundry dissipates, and now you find yourself in a much more intimate, yet equally enchanting setting. You're in a richly adorned chamber, perhaps within an imperial palace or a wealthy nobleman's estate. Before you, a small, elaborate stage is set, and upon it, exquisite figures crafted from wood, silk, and sometimes even metal, are performing a silent play. Their limbs move with uncanny grace, their heads nod, and their tiny mouths seem to form words, all without visible strings or human intervention. This is the world of mechanical puppet theaters, sophisticated automated figures used for elaborate storytelling and performance in ancient China. You lean forward, captivated by the intricate miniature drama unfolding before you. This wasn't just simple puppetry, it was an early form of robotics integrated with theatrical artistry. Imagine the delight, the utter fascination, of an ancient audience witnessing these lifelike figures enacting tales of heroism, love, or even historical events, all powered by hidden mechanisms. It was the ancient world's animated movie, but with a lot more gears and a complete absence of popcorn. The tradition of puppetry in China is ancient, but the development of mechanical puppets, known as Ju Ren, literally, moving figures, or actors, represents a significant leap. These were often complex automata, sometimes integrated into larger displays like the water-powered clock towers, or standalone features for imperial entertainment. Their purpose was to amuse, to instruct, and to demonstrate the boundless ingenuity of their creators. A mainstream historical fact, during the Tang dynasty, 618 to 907 CE, mechanical puppets were reportedly used in elaborate court entertainments, sometimes even as part of ritual performances. Accounts describe figures that could pour wine, play musical instruments, as seen in the mechanical orchestra, or perform intricate dances. These weren't mere dolls, they were complex, articulated machines capable of a surprising range of movements. Emperor Xuanzong, once again, was a known patron of such mechanical wonders. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, some of the more elaborate mechanical puppet shows might have incorporated rudimentary sound effects, perhaps through concealed pipes or small percussion instruments triggered by the puppet's movements or by a hidden operator. This would have further enhanced the illusion of lifelike performance, adding an auditory layer to the visual spectacle. Imagine a tiny, mechanical clatter accompanying a sword fight or a soft chime signaling a change of scene. It's a matter of debate if the movements were entirely self-contained within each puppet, or if some larger, external mechanical system controlled multiple figures simultaneously, like a central brain for the entire performance. The level of autonomy for individual puppets is often debated amongst historians. The mechanics of these puppets were often ingenious, relying on a combination of levers, cams, pulleys, and sometimes even water pressure or simple weights. The artisan would meticulously carve each part, ensuring that the joints moved smoothly and that the internal mechanisms were precisely calibrated to achieve the desired motion. The figures themselves were often beautifully crafted, adorned with silk garments and painted features, adding to their lifelike appearance. You can almost see the tiny gears whirring, the delicate levers shifting, bringing the silent actors to life. The storytelling aspect was crucial. These mechanical puppet theaters weren't just about showing off technology, they were about conveying narratives. They would perform famous legends, historical anecdotes, or moral tales, making abstract concepts or distant events tangible and engaging for the audience. For the imperial court, it provided a sophisticated form of entertainment that was both culturally enriching and technologically impressive. The skills required to create such mechanical puppets were diverse. It demanded the artistry of a sculptor, the precision of a clockmaker, and the imaginative flair of a storyteller. The ability to integrate these disparate skills into a single, cohesive creation speaks volumes about the holistic approach to invention in ancient China. It was a true collaboration between art and engineering. These forgotten inventions, while perhaps serving primarily as entertainment, pushed the boundaries of automation and mechanical design. The understanding gained from creating intricate, lifelike movements for puppets could potentially be applied to other areas, such as the more practical automata seen in water clocks or even early industrial machinery, though direct evidence of such transfer is often subtle. It's like learning to make a delicate clockwork bird before you design a more robust mechanical crane. You feel a gentle sense of wonder at the patience and dedication of the ancient artisans who breathed mechanical life into these silent actors. Their work reminds you that entertainment has long been a powerful driver of human innovation, spurring creative minds to build increasingly complex and enchanting machines. And as the tiny, tireless performers on the mechanical stage continue their silent ballet, their quiet movements lull you into a deeper state of relaxation, where the boundaries between ancient marvels and peaceful slumber begin to blur. The intricate dance of the mechanical puppets fades from your mind, and now you find yourself amidst hushed whispers and tantalizing legends. You're no longer observing a tangible invention but pondering something far more elusive, something bordering on the mythical. You hear tales of wondrous conveyances, described as being able to traverse vast distances, even to fly through the air. These are the divine chariots, accounts of incredibly advanced, possibly airborne, vehicles that pepper ancient Chinese texts, blurring the lines between legend and lost engineering. You feel a subtle pull of wonder, a sense of peering into the very edge of historical possibility. Was it merely poetic license, a fantastical embellishment of rudimentary technology, or did ancient China possess secrets of flight that have been utterly lost to time? It's a question that gently tugs at your imagination, a quiet mystery swirling through the annals of forgotten ingenuity. The concept of flying vehicles, or chariots associated with deities and powerful beings, is present in many ancient cultures. In China, however, these descriptions sometimes include details that hint at mechanical rather than purely magical means of propulsion. These accounts are found in various texts, from philosophical treatises to historical chronicles, though often highly stylized and open to interpretation. A mainstream historical fact, the philosopher Mozi, 5th century BCE, is recorded as having attempted to build a wooden bird that could fly. While this is often interpreted as a large, sophisticated kite or glider, as mentioned previously, the emphasis on wooden bird and the description of it flying for a period suggests a mechanical construction rather than a simple kite. This isn't necessarily a divine chariot, but it establishes a foundational interest in aerial locomotion. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, there are tantalizing, highly speculative accounts from the Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE, where the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, is rumored to have possessed flying chariots, or to have been visited by immortals who arrived in such craft. These stories are deeply embedded in folklore and imperial mystique, often serving to enhance the emperor's divine connection. However, the sheer persistence of such narratives begs the question, were they purely symbolic, or did they have some distant, perhaps exaggerated, basis in early proto-aerodynamic experiments? It's a matter of debate if these accounts represent genuine, forgotten aerial technology, or if they are purely allegorical and mythological, perhaps serving to legitimize imperial power or express a longing for impossible feats. Separating fact from fantastic hyperbole is an ongoing challenge for historians. The descriptions of these divine chariots, even if fanciful, often include elements that suggest mechanical understanding, wheels, levers, or even references to internal mechanisms that allowed for movement without visible propulsion. They aren't simply described as floating, they are sometimes depicted as riding the wind, implying a passive use of air currents, or powered by the inner workings, suggesting some form of concealed engine or spring mechanism. Consider the human fascination with flight. From the earliest times, we have looked to the birds with envy. The ancient Chinese, with their deep understanding of engineering principles, as evidenced by paddle boats, automata, and elaborate water clocks, would naturally have applied this curiosity to the challenge of flight. While the divine chariots likely remain firmly in the realm of legend for now, they symbolize a persistent human desire to conquer the skies, and a cultural imagination that allowed for mechanical solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. The cultural context is important here. In ancient China, the emperor was considered the son of heaven, and his power was often legitimized by association with divine beings and wondrous phenomena. Tales of flying chariots could serve to reinforce this image, making the emperor seem even more extraordinary and his dominion divinely ordained. These stories were less about scientific treatises and more about reinforcing a worldview. Yet, even within these mythological narratives, there might be kernels of truth, distorted by time and poetic license. Perhaps there were rudimentary gliders, incredibly large kites that offered momentary lifts, or even sophisticated hot air balloons, though concrete evidence for early manned hot air balloons in China before the 3rd century CE is limited. There are mentions of flying lanterns. These could have provided the initial spark for the grander tales of divine chariots. The silence surrounding these inventions in more formal historical texts often makes them difficult to verify. Unlike the seismograph or the repeating crossbow, which had clear practical applications and detailed historical records, the divine chariots often float in the realm of legend, passed down through oral tradition or embellished in literary works. This makes them all the more intriguing, leaving ample room for your imagination to wander. As you ponder these elusive flying machines, you realize that the boundaries of what is forgotten are often blurred by what was never fully recorded, or what was deliberately obscured by secrecy or mythology. The divine chariots are a whispered possibility, a testament to an ancient imagination that soared beyond the tangible, perhaps even hinting at technological dreams that were pursued and then lost to the relentless march of time. And as these airy visions gently swirl in your mind, you feel your own thoughts beginning to drift, like ancient chariots on an unseen wind, easing you further into the quiet depths of sleep. The faint whispers of divine chariots still linger in the air, blurring the line between history and myth. Now, as the ambient sounds of ancient China gradually fade, you find yourself in a quiet, shadowy archive, a place where scrolls are brittle and dust motes dance in the slivers of light. You're surrounded by the heavy silence of what has been lost, contemplating the lost scrolls and forgotten knowledge, the countless inventions, theories, and practices that have vanished from the historical record, hinting at an even richer, perhaps unimaginable, past. You feel a profound sense of quiet melancholy, a gentle weight of what might have been. Imagine generations of ingenuity, brilliant ideas, and groundbreaking discoveries, all wiped away by the ravages of time, fire, political upheaval, and human forgetfulness. It's not just about lost objects, it's about lost thought, lost progress, and lost potential. It's the silent, unwritten chapters of history. Ancient China, despite its meticulous record-keeping, suffered immense losses of knowledge. Wars, the burning of books, most famously by Qin Shi Huang in 213 BCE, natural disasters, and the simple decay of materials all conspired to erase countless innovations from our collective memory. Many inventions, perhaps deemed too trivial to record in official histories, or confined to specialized artisan guilds, simply faded away when their last practitioners died. A mainstream historical fact, the burning of books and burying of scholars under Qin Shi Huang is perhaps the most famous historical act of knowledge destruction in ancient China. While its scale and efficacy are debated, the intent was to consolidate power and suppress dissenting thought, leading to the deliberate destruction of many texts from previous dynasties, including historical records and philosophical works. This act alone likely eradicated descriptions of numerous technologies and scientific ideas. Now for a quirky, lesser-known tidbit, there are historical accounts of ingenious devices, like mechanical cranes or sophisticated water pumps, that were described in texts but for which no detailed blueprints or working models survive. These might have been highly specialized creations for specific projects, their designs only understood by a handful of engineers, and thus easily lost when the need for them passed or their creators were gone. It's a matter of debate if many lost inventions were truly revolutionary, or simply context-specific solutions that did not lend themselves to wider adoption or long-term preservation. The line between a forgotten wonder and a short-lived curiosity is often blurry. Think about the sheer fragility of knowledge in the ancient world. Paper, while revolutionary, is still susceptible to fire, insects, and humidity. Wooden models decay. Oral traditions can be distorted or cease entirely with the passing of a generation. Without widespread, robust methods of documentation and dissemination, which printing only slowly began to remedy, even groundbreaking inventions could easily become obscure. Consider the craft secrets. Many ancient inventions were the product of guilds or individual master craftsmen, who guarded their techniques jealously. The knowledge was often passed down through apprenticeship, rather than written treatises. If a master died prematurely, or if a line of succession was broken, an entire body of knowledge could simply vanish. You can almost feel the weight of this forgotten expertise, hovering like ghosts in the quiet air. The lost inventions might include agricultural improvements that vanished due to shifts in climate or population, sophisticated construction techniques that fell out of favor, or even early scientific theories that were superseded or simply forgotten before they could fully develop. Perhaps there were rudimentary forms of optics, or advanced chemical processes for dyes or ceramics, whose detailed methodologies are no longer known. Every archaeological discovery, every unearthed scroll, offers a tantalizing glimpse of this vast, submerged continent of lost knowledge. This profound sense of what's lost highlights the ongoing work of historians and archaeologists, piecing together fragments, interpreting ambiguous texts, and trying to reconstruct a fuller picture of human ingenuity. It's a continuous puzzle, where many pieces are simply gone forever, leaving tantalizing gaps. The very concept of a golden age of invention, often associated with specific dynasties like the Han or Tang, implies that other periods might have seen innovations that simply didn't survive the filters of imperial record-keeping or later historical focus. The forgotten aren't just single inventions but entire lineages of technological development that simply ran their course and disappeared. You gently turn a brittle, empty scroll on a dusty shelf, its blankness a metaphor for the unwritten stories and undreamed of creations that are now irrevocably lost. This archive isn't just a repository of what remains, it's a monument to what has been erased. And as you contemplate this silent expanse of forgotten wisdom, a deep calm settles over you, a profound acceptance of the past's impermanence, drawing you gently, irrevocably, into the quiet, enveloping darkness of sleep. And so, our gentle journey through the forgotten wonders of ancient China slowly draws to a close. The subtle whir of unseen gears, the quiet splash of ancient water clocks, the distant clang of a seismograph's ball, all these sounds begin to soften, to blend, like colors bleeding together on a wet canvas. You are drifting now, effortlessly, carried by the quiet currents of history. The meticulous craftsmanship of the earliest automata, those tiny, winking mechanical figures, seems to merge with the unwavering directional certainty of the south-pointing chariot, a marvel of ancient navigation. The steady glow of a perpetual lamp, burning patiently in the silent darkness, now becomes one with the soaring, silent flight of reconnaissance kites, whispering secrets from the ancient skies. The delicate, pre-programmed melodies of the mechanical orchestra, playing their timeless tunes, gently weave into the rhythmic churning of early paddle-boats, propelling their passengers across calm, ancient waterways. The grand cosmic engine of the water-powered armillary sphere, with its slow, deliberate mirroring of the heavens, dissolves into the refreshing, subtle currents of ancient air conditioning, offering a moment of cool reprieve from the summer sun. The rapid, insistent thwack of the repeating crossbow, once a sound of ancient conflict, now softens to a gentle tap, a reminder of forgotten military ingenuity. The rustle of paper and the quiet press of early printing, those humble yet revolutionary acts of knowledge dissemination, flow into the intense, transformative heat of ancient blast furnaces and steel production, the very forge of an empire. And the intricate, silent performances of mechanical puppet theaters, those tiny automated dramas, blend with the ethereal whispers of divine chariots, hinting at the unreachable dreams of flight. Finally, everything merges into the vast, silent sea of lost scrolls and forgotten knowledge, a poignant reminder of the impermanence of even the grandest human endeavors. You are now simply floating in a tranquil sea of historical echoes, the sounds and sights of ingenuity and antiquity fading into a gentle hum. The weight of time, the grand sweep of human creation and loss, settles softly around you, like a comforting blanket. There's no need to hold on to any specific detail now, just let the feeling of deep calm wash over you. The long night is quiet, and the ancient world offers its final, peaceful embrace. This video has explored remarkable forgotten inventions from ancient China, including automata, the south-pointing chariot, Zhongheng's seismograph, perpetual lamps, and early forms of air conditioning and printing. It also touched upon sophisticated paddleboats, astronomical instruments, repeating crossbows, advanced metallurgy, mechanical puppet theaters, and speculative aerial devices, concluding with a reflection on lost knowledge. Please note, this video is for informational and supplementary purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. If you are experiencing any health concerns, please consult a healthcare professional for early diagnosis and treatment.